David and Meg, it's so glad to have you on the Office of Marriage podcast. Thank you for being here. I am so excited about this conversation.
Thanks so much, Dr. Kim. It is great to be here. Thanks for having us on.
So much fun.
It is. It's just great to just
Our pleasure,
spend time together. Thank you. So kind of just so people that maybe not know much about you, a little bit of background about you two. And obviously, since we're a marriage podcast, kind of how you first got together and kind of take it from there.
That's a great question. I actually just came back from taking our oldest child to orientation, which was crazy memory flood of all the things, because that's where I met David, was at my orientation as an incoming freshman into college. We went to the University of Mississippi and he was an orientation leader. And anyway, walked up to the group. I actually went by a nickname. He called that off the roll. It was kind of a funny coincidence, but we actually got to know each other when school started in the fall. We were both involved with Crew, and Crew decided to have co-ed Bible studies that semester. And I landed in his Bible study. He was leading it. And lucky for me, I got to know this
lucky
stud.
For me, because about a month and a half in, I was like to my co-leader, hey, there's this freshman who has this mysterious security, and I feel like I'm getting to know her heart in this Bible study, and I need accountability. And maybe I overdid it a little bit, anyway. So the day that Bible study was over, I asked her out on a first date, and we started dating, and a few years later did get married. And we've been in ministry of some sort for 23 years. And yet it was when we were living in New York City, and we were working with 20-somethings in New York after people graduated and helping them connect to local, church communities and other people as they would transition to major cities like New York City, where we were, and get connected into their continued spiritual journey as they also, what's the redemptive purposes of work. It was a blast. But we started noticing all the opportunity for this rising generation and our age people, how marriage and family just always opened up spiritual conversation. And it's such an intimate part of our journey. And there's such a powerful conduit to experiencing the gospel, because you come to the end of yourself inside the four walls of your home,
Yes.
And in your marriage in particular. And so when we have now joined for almost 7 years now, I'm the president of FamilyLife, and we have loved being able to serve marriages and families together in this role. And as we were candidates for that, we were kind of this wild card candidate because we weren't in the marriage scene as far as content and whatnot. But our hearts were, we love discipling people. And that's Jesus' way, life on life. And man, marriage and family is such an intimate part of our spiritual formation. And so that's why we said yes to being candidates. And that's why we've loved these last few years getting to serve.
That's awesome. Meg mentioned the oldest, but you have 3 others. So you have 4 kids altogether.
We do. So our oldest is a boy, and then we have a daughter who's 16 and another son who's 14 and an 8-year-old boy as well.
Big moments happening today. So we're actually at home and not at the office, because our 14-year-old's getting his braces off, and therefore all the teenagers are allocated out taking him, and our 8-year-olds, he may make a surprise appearance. Who knows? We're at home because he's downstairs figuring things out.
Oh, my 14-year-old granddaughter just got hers off a month or so ago, and it is a celebration. It is,
right?
Yeah, things
Finally
they can
wore those
eat now.
Yes.
All those things are gone. Don't have to mess with that anymore.
Yes.
Well, that's great. And I love what you guys do. So let's kind of get into millennials and Gen Z couples. You've worked with them. What are you seeing in the generation that really excites you about marriage these days?
That's a great question. I think one of our favorite things that we probably first picked up on this when we lived in New York City, and we're doing a lot of life on life with millennials, but we see it even more, I think, is just that younger generations are doing a lot of deep story work. I mean, they're really taking time to look at their past, look at their story, and maybe how they grew up or things that have happened along the way that have kind of shaped them. And I think in the context of marriage, I mean, that's really formative for how you relate to one another. And so just valuing deeply just their own past and how that affects how they relate to one another, whether that's through counseling or just story work or different avenues. I feel like there's kind of a push for more of that in the younger generations, that for sure I feel like our parents' generations kind of pushed against that, and our generation is probably better about it, but
It's
it
like
just seems to be
when you felt
more.
like you needed it, not to be
Yeah.
proactive.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Instead of, like, for us, I feel like it probably our age, it may be more of a response to something that comes up, but they are a little more proactive. Let's dig in and figure out, you know, how I was shaped by my life and how that affects, it just sets you up well to relate better.
Because we all have ingrained sin patterns that we bring into our
Yeah.
marriage, and we all have a family of origin, of course. And these are things we know, but to be really proactive of, I'm going to invite someone I just made a covenant with as we're living this out into that part of my story to join in with Jesus in the redemption of it. That's what the power of marriage was intended to be and can be as God restores us each individually. And we're really grateful for how the rising generation really, many of them lean into that and want that. And I would just add, there's a power in community of wanting to be vulnerable with community. And many of the rising generation, that's what we love about working
Yeah.
with younger marriages, is that's a desire. Someone has to crack open first in order to go there. But then once someone does, man, it is soft soil that people want to experience.
Yeah, I think that's so good. And I think I see that too in the ones I counsel or premarital counseling, that there is an openness. That generation will bring up things that couples that I saw, Gen Xers and that just didn't. They'll say, we want to talk about our sex life, or or we want to talk about this. They're very open, and I love it because they're willing to address things and not try to, oh, we're okay, and just assume they're okay when they're not. I'm doing 3 couples right now in premarital counseling, and 2 of them, well, one of the couple both of them came from what I understand really good Christian homes. One couple, one did, one didn't. But what I see in these is that, because even though it's the couple that came, both were good, what I would say really pretty good homes, I said, you want a marriage like your parents? No, we want better. And I thought, that is so cool. And so then we were able to delve in to see, okay, let's talk about the good things in your family of origin. And then what do you want to do better? And a lot of it is just that continued growth and continued to really explore what God has for them in marriage, and things that I really didn't see before. Maybe people thought it, but they are talking about it more. So what you guys saying makes total sense.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. I so appreciate there's a risk. Vulnerability does involve risk, and it's not status quo. And yet vulnerability is the pathway to deeper intimacy, and to be able to be vulnerable with your own false beliefs and patterns that you've developed in order to make life work. I mean, what a gift that you get the safety of a covenant to be honest about those things. That doesn't mean that it's always going to be easy. There is risk involved. Yet, man, the intimacy on the other side is so beautiful.
It's just that longing we have to be fully known and fully loved. And the more you pull back the curtain and let somebody in, which even in marriage, I mean, you kind of can make this assumption that you're just going to have that, but you have to take those risky steps to take down pieces of the walls around my heart and continually, I mean, we experience it all the time. I mean, I just so quickly can put the wall up, but I have to keep taking that wall down, let him in, invite him in, so.
Yeah, that's so good, because you're right. I don't think it comes easy for any of us. But like you were saying, I think once we do and we see it's good, there's benefits to it. It's hard, maybe painful, but as we get through that, then it's easier, I think, the second time and the third time, and you begin to see we can talk about everything. And that's what I think that Nancy and I, someone would ask us that when we got married, do you want to be able to talk about everything and be totally vulnerable? Kind of like Adam and Eve in the garden before the fall, just naked and ashamed. And yeah, that's what we would have wanted. And then life gets in the way of it.
That's right.
That is true.
And the world gets in the way of it. So that's the good things about it. What are you seeing that concerns you about marriage today? What are you seeing on that side?
Yeah. The first thing that comes to my mind is there is such a gift at the amount of content now available to a young couple and to marriages. I mean, it is abundant. It is more than you'd ever want. The quality of it is amazing. I mean, both you and Family Life, this part of what we do is not all of what we do.
Mm.
And so there's such a great gift of having so many amazing resources out there. The downside is sometimes we can go to our social media channels for when we need input, which is a great outlet. But yet the primacy of face-to-face, the primacy of being life on life with, maybe it's an older couple, maybe it's couples that you journey with in your same stage, both play different roles that are critical to our faith formation and to our marriage formation. And we look back and go, man, even when the kids were all really young and we were barely surviving and on a thread, we just had someone stay with us last night that was the family that said, just come over on a Friday night. They were one step ahead of us and say, you're going to make it. Just come on over. The conversation always led to somewhere. There was no agenda. It was just a life on life safe space. And then there were obviously other people that have journeyed really intentionally with us, which is also really important. But it's the opportunity that can become outsized of the life on life, the need for community, the need for others that are a part of our life that can sometimes be concerning because you're getting enough intake. Now, how does that get lived out practically? Well, that takes a life on life experience.
Yeah, for sure. And even just like taking the extra step of the things that we might be absorbing from social media or, I mean, from good places, content or, things, whether it's small groups, whatever, but just taking that and then processing it with somebody, I think sometimes we even underestimate or we see younger couples underestimating the value of that and just kind of thinking, oh, I'm just going to take all this in. But it's like, actually, like the more you process it together and share what's really going on, the more those things take root, the same thing with
absolutely
the word, God's word, same thing. But.
Yeah. I love what you said, Dave, about you guys and when the couple is just a step ahead of you. And I encourage this all the time. Find somebody that's been where you are. And then on the outside, it looks like they did pretty good. So, and say, hey, you want to have lunch or dinner or coffee or something like that? Because we had some people like that in different stages. And it was so valuable to us because we had no idea what we were doing at 20 years old. No idea what we were doing. I mean, my parents were good models. Nancy came from a kind of dysfunctional home. It took us about 3 months into marriage to realize we didn't know anything. And then we had some people in church that just kind of really reached out took us under their wing and just spent time with us. And gosh, it made such a difference for us. You don't feel like you're alone. And I think and to know that, oh, wow, we're not the only ones that have gone through this.
I was getting ready to say that. It's so normalizing. Like, you sometimes lose your cool with your family or, whatever. Or like your house has toys everywhere and you don't clean it up perfectly every day. Or just like the little things even that you can be so hard on yourself about.
Yeah.
But you spend time around other people and you realize, okay, these are normal things. They need the gospel and they need Jesus every day too. So
absolutely. Yeah, that's so good.
The scripts we tell ourselves when life gets hairy, when it gets hard, it's amazing how those scripts take over. And for marriage, that can get really it can be one of the most isolating places is when we're in our old scripts of the shame talk that we give to ourselves and we're not able to break through or the communication is just kind of stuck. It sometimes takes very intentional steps beyond that. Sometimes it's just as easy as being in community that can break you out of that. Yes. And often people are like, but where do you start? If I don't know a couple, so you say that, Dr. Kim, I'm like, oh, that's so perfect. Absolutely. For some, you may be just thinking, gosh, I really can't think of anybody, or I'm in a new city and I don't know anybody, or it feels too risky. One of the things that we just did with our church is the Art of Marriage, which is a new resource by FamilyLife. And it's just a small group, 6 sessions. And it just like sets up great conversation. So and we had, demographics from people that have been married 40 years down to engaged couples. And it was just this simple, beautiful place where conversations just started cultivating. And it was just a reminder to me of, we had a new resource that I wanted to try out in my local church. That was our motive. It was just this up close, personal thing again of, oh my goodness, this is so simple. Get some people together, call them over to your living room or gather them somewhere that's comfortable.
Yeah.
And no one has to be, this is one of those resources that's just, you press play for 25 minutes and there's questions that one facilitator ask. And it was that simple. And people long for it. And to hear people just going, I just needed a space to talk through some things and to hear what other people are walking through. You forget how simple it can be. It doesn't have to be this grandiose mentoring thing, which is beautiful when that happens.
Sure.
We love the mentors in our life. It also can be as simple of just, hey, can we watch this together? Or can we listen to this Dr. Kim podcast and talk about it? It can be that simple.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think we complicate it or we don't know where to start. And that's and we'll put that in the conversation guide we send out so people know about that resource. Because I think things like that, people are looking for things. Sometimes you just need something like that to get your jump start. And
That's
I
right.
had a couple of weeks ago, and she really wanted to go to this small group that was it was married couples, just talking about marriage and stuff. Oh my gosh, she had to drag him And so next week they come in and I said, well, y'all going back? He said, oh yeah, we're going back every week. And it was just, was just, sometimes it's just getting past that barrier. And so maybe one of them wants to go more than the other, but just encourage each other. You can try something once. If you don't like it, you don't have to go back.
True. Yeah.
But most of the time,
you're right. The first time is usually the hardest. And
it is the hardest.
Like, wait, why did I think this was going to be so hard?
I like those people. Yeah. That's really
I
good.
have a thing I often say, and I get a ton of pushback on it. Are you sure? Do you think that's real? And I say, most people want to talk about their marriage. It just requires someone else to start the conversation. Most people want to crack. Now, there are some that they're in such pain cycles that, yes, there's more nuance to it. And it needs to be in a more curated and careful environment. But yet, for a lot of people out there, they just need someone to open up the dialogue. And it's just like, whoosh, gosh, it's so great to have this. You just start hearing words like safety and I feel normal. And, oh, it's so good to just talk about it, not just in between the two of us. And people long for that. And anyone listening here can be one of those agents that just cracks open the normalcy and invites it in.
Yeah, like I was just thinking, Meg, just the lady told me, she said, when I talked to this lady and she's such a strong Christian in her church, and I found out she yells at her kids too. She said that was so freeing for me. And I go, yeah, exactly.
So true, right?
Happens. That happens. Absolutely. Absolutely.
It does happen.
So let's talk about what are the three major threats that couples are going to likely face.
Yeah. Well, I would say these are as old as they come when I think about three threats, because they're from God's word and it's eternal. It's been around a long time.
Yeah.
And so it's from 1 John, but I think it boils down to this much of the three threats: the enemy himself, your own sinful nature, yourself, and the world, and what will come at you and the influences that will come at you. And so, first and foremost, okay, there is an enemy and your spouse is not your enemy.
Yeah,
and so often our battle is not against flesh and blood. And, Meg, sometimes she'll be like, touch your spouse, this is flesh and blood.
He's flesh and blood. He's right here. So he's not my enemy. That's
Ephesians tells us that is not your enemy. And yet so often life goes and the enemy it feels like your spouse is right here as the enemy. But man,
absolutely,
we all know this from our own stories and the story work that any of us have done, that for a long time, the enemy has been working on each one of the scripts we play to ourselves, since I've already used that analogy, and much more, the ruts we fall into, the temptations we have. Okay, that's been going on for a long time. And we bring those into our marriages. And then the accuser starts making, us accuse each other. And sometimes it is, not everything is spiritual warfare, but it's often good just to go, wait, I'm viewing my spouse as my enemy in this situation. And okay, that I got to break what that is. Anything else you'd add to that?
Mm-hmm.
I would just reiterate the same things. Just it's so quick. It's so easy to quickly start to look at him. And, when there's tension or frustration, or maybe even, I mean, we laugh that sometimes even the things that attracted me most to him, when we were first dating or first married, can, like the good gifts that we have also have kind of that darker side that can become something that's hard. But it's like, that's just how sometimes the enemy is just making me miss the things I love about him, and even turning
Yeah.
that against us, against each other. But just like getting real about, all right, let's keep short accounts with each other when I'm starting to feel like frustrated, and it can just fester in my heart. And it's like, okay, wait, why am I starting to feel so much frustration towards you? That's just, you're not my enemy, and
By the way,
Right.
sometimes I bring great frustration to her,
there,
but
well, same
yeah.
here. And there are times when we do need to
Yes.
be honest and call each other out. And,
which
my sin does become a threat. That's
which
when my
does,
flesh becomes a problem.
and that is the second threat, and it's the internal threat of
Mm.
us. And I would even frame it this way: us seeking to live in our own power by the power of our flesh, by you know we are meant, and the only way that we are able to live this thing out called walk life, where we're walking with Jesus faithfully, and then I would say marriage, which God created, is by doing it in the power of the Holy Spirit, which taps into divine resources that, for if we trust Christ, he not only takes our sin away, but the beautiful double transfer of putting his spirit inside of us to enable us to live out this thing called life, and the incredible thing of two sinful people under one roof figuring this thing out called marriage. We end up defaulting to depending upon ourselves instead of the divine resources God's given us in the power of his Holy Spirit. And I often just say, your flesh will be your flesh will be your flesh. I don't care how much you try to pretty it up, discipline it. The scripture talks about, we try to perfect our flesh, and it will always end up showing its true colors. It will end up being selfish. It will end up failing you, because our flesh will fail us no matter how much we try to clean it up. And so realizing, hey, my weakness is actually an advantage. I can depend upon God. When I tap into my weakness, his power is made perfect in my weakness. I can depend upon him and going, it is your spirit, your power that allows me to, even if when there's great wedge between us, to be able to look at each other and go, what's my part in this? What do I need to own? And Lord, reveal that to me, and to be able to move toward your spouse empowered by the Holy Spirit. And then even when it's going good, you don't live by the power of your flesh. You live by the power of the Holy Spirit to keep it good, and to keep being prompted by the Lord. So
No, that's so good. And to know that's available. And I think sometimes it's hard for people to get there, but I just say, just give him a chance. Now, what I find when I invite him in and I start telling him about the stuff Nancy's done, he goes, we're going to talk about you. And then he said, I'll take care of Nancy. And I go, okay, but God wants our marriages to be good. And so that power is there. And I love the way you said it. It's just something that is there, that when we take advantage of it, when we really let go and let him, the difference it makes. And it helps us, it helps me. I think it unites Nancy and I when we're doing that. And we try to do it in good times and bad times. But I think it does, because there's the three of us there, and he's got more strength, more power, more wisdom, all that stuff than we do. And it's like, there's a lot we don't have to do because he's doing it.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
So
true.
And he doesn't screw it up, and I do.
The way you said that reminded me of the A and the M analogy. I don't know if it's a simple analogy of, often, even for those who are following Jesus faithfully, we often build our marriages like an A, where, okay, there's me, there's her, and then God's a part of it, and we're just really glad God's a part of it. But then you just end up leaning on each other and suffocating one another. And your flesh will be your flesh. You're putting way too much dependence on, instead of, wow, we are really going visual here. Here we go. Wow. In the screenshot, like an M, where the inner parts of the M, there's me, there's her, and we're each leaning upon the Lord.
This is God.
That's so good.
Pillars.
And there's a deep connection.
We meet down here, where the M meets at the bottom, but we're each independently leaning on the Lord. And and there's oneness, it's one letter, but we're not leaning on each other for all the support and everything we need. Because it's so easy for me to look to David for things that God, I was made for the Lord to feel those things in me. And if
Yeah.
I mean, even on his very best day, he's not going to meet all of my needs because that's not what he was made for. It's kind of that,
Yeah.
our culture, says, "Oh, you complete me," back from the Jerry Maguire movie. But we kind of do. Sometimes we go into marriage kind of thinking that's what's going to happen,
Yeah.
but that's not how God made us. And yes, there is a beautiful complement that happens in marriage and a oneness. But yeah, it's that leaning heavily on the Lord and making him the pillars of our marriage that is long lasting.
And then the third threat, and you just mentioned it, is, the world and the things that will seek to lure us in. There's so many ways you can talk about this. And the fact that, it goes, I think of Jeremiah 2:13, I think is the verse of, we all build our own broken cisterns to try to make life work. And we try to fill up our broken cisterns to satisfy instead of running to him, the living water. And, there's just forces that shape us because it's constantly, coming at us in different ways. And, the one coming to my mind right now is even just, okay, when it comes to sexual desire, I see so many couples get locked up because you see in movies all the time, two people with both having initiating desire, where,
Yes.
the man and the woman both have this obvious initiating desire that's constantly there. And it's just like, okay, that's very few marriages. It's in the percentage of teens that actually have both spouses have initiating desire. It's something like 83% of marriages have one with initiating, one with responsive desire. They're open to it once it's been initiated, but it's not like this automatic thing. But that gets in our heads, and we've watched and we've seen something that's this unrealistic for many couples because it's not the way each one of our desires is shaped. And so we get having those honest conversations of, all right, how are we shaped? What's that? And that's
Right.
not bad. And there's some people that have resistant desire because of things that have happened in their story or past, and that's something that you get to work through together under the safety of a covenant.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, that's so good. And I think it's so easy for us if we look at that worldview. Yeah. And it's like, well, what's wrong with you? Didn't you see that movie? Didn't you see her, whatever that's chasing him down? And usually I think 80% for the most part seems to be the man, but I've had some situations where it is the wife. And I tell them it's not a right or wrong. It's just we're different. What I never have seen is where one's 83 and one's 17, or they're both, or where they're both 83. Let me put it that way, or they're both 17. Now that can happen a little bit, but yeah, but I think God teaches us through that. And he taught me, because my drive's always been higher than Nancy's, to appreciate her, to love her, to accept that difference. And I think once I did that and quit trying to guy manipulator into feeling bad if we didn't have sex, that our sex life improved so much.
Yeah.
Because it's all about sacrifice, and like loving that way. Yeah. That's so good.
It was a change for us, definitely like that. So
that's good.
That's good. And I think just the other things that the world throws at us, the world doesn't like marriage very well. We know the enemy doesn't like marriage at all. And so I think we have to realize that we are in that battle, like you said, we're in this spiritual battle, and Christian marriages seem to be under attack a lot. And because I think the enemy knows if he can tear a marriage apart, how many victories he gets out of that. And
it's reflecting something unique about two people dependent upon Christ, reflecting what God created originally in marriage, intending to reflect the bride and the bridegroom and Jesus himself and his bride, the church. I mean, it is one of the things that glorifies God the most. And there's a reason why he does. The enemy is the first threat, is because it does give God great glory when it may not be, there's no perfect marriage, but when there's a healthy marriage and I always think a healthy marriage is one that's repenting often, because you're seeing your own sin, you're leaning toward repentance, and forgiveness is like this rhythm in the marriage. So.
I mean, I think one of the biggest ways too that the world impacts our marriage and is a threat is just the reality that life is so crazy and so busy and full and hard at times. We were all wrestling with grief and all this stuff. And it's like, no marriage is going to just naturally drift towards this awesome oneness. All those realities of the world, they're pulling us apart. I mean, when we first moved to Florida, we haven't lived here. We've only lived here 4 years, but we only live an hour from the beach. And we realized pretty quickly how much all of us love just throwing everything in the car and going to the beach for the day. But our kids love to boogie board. And I mean, every time we go to the beach, every time they're boogie boarding and they're out there riding the waves, and you look up as parents and we're watching them, but then we realize, oh my goodness, they're drifting like way down there, and we're yelling, at our kids, get out of the water. You got to walk way back over here. Look, we're all the way over here. And, they have no idea the water is pulling them. And that's the same thing that happens in our marriage. We don't realize the world and like everything that's going on in our lives, sports activities or social lives or whatever it is, work and all the things. I mean, good things, they're not necessarily bad things.
That's
Sometimes
right.
they are, but those things just have this pull on us, and we have to really fight that and take time to halt the drift, and get on the ground, get on the sand and move toward one another, sometimes in little tiny ways and sometimes bigger ways, when the drift is big. But
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that it does it. And I think if our culture, if all the things hit us all at once that have transpired over the past whatever many years, we go, no, but it's just that little bit at a time. And so we kind of become desensitized, and like you said, a lot of things that are in our lives are not bad, but I think what we figured out was we had to choose what was best over what was good. And the more we did that, the better our marriage was. And I think we were better parents when we did that too. And sometimes it's hard to say no when your kids are saying,
for sure.
Yes.
And all their families around you, even your good friends, are saying yes to things that you're like, oh, I want
yeah.
to do that, but I don't know if that's a good thing for all
Right.
of us.
And then you become the worst parents in the world, but you're
Yeah.
not. It's like,
That's so true.
yeah. And you'll experience this too. I think of my son, Grant was probably 23 or 24 when we were talking one day, and he said, hey, I just want to let you know, all those times you said no, and I got so mad, thank you. And I thought, I'm glad you said that. I didn't know if you ever would, but I think it made me know, and even counseling couples and helping them, sometimes I tell that story just for them to know, yeah, you may not be top on their charts right now, but they're going to appreciate it someday.
That's right.
Good. That's good for us to
Because
hear with.
they're going to
all teenagers.
realize, oh yeah, they're going to realize someday, oh, that's why they did that. Yeah, because I got to do that with my kids now. So that's really good. So when we go through those things we're talking about, the world and all that, when couples come through that, how do they come through it better than they were before?
I mean, when the threats come at you, doing whatever you can to get honest, to get vulnerable, and get that space is the soil for forgiveness and to move back toward one another, to get on the dry sand and to move back toward one another. Easier said than done, and we all know it. And so it all, it comes out of my mouth and I go, oh, that's so what it is. But it's amazing to me how, we were at a place a few years ago that we were like, whoa, we are feeling a lot of apartness, and the drift has happened big time, and that we had moved, and there were realities we were carrying, but what was true for me, and it was just one of those, I was not being honest with myself or inviting other people in of how much I was giving toward ministry that I love. It was good work. It's a good thing, but it was becoming an ultimate thing in my heart, and I was pouring a lot out into ministry and others, and really was not as much at home. And then for Meg, I mean, you can speak for yourself, but just, you started holding back some.
Yeah, for sure. I felt like he had so much on his plate that I realized I was kind of being too careful. I was like, well, if I'm really struggling and feeling, because we'd moved and just starting all over again, and just my own, just things I was processing, grief around that. And I was like, oh, I don't want to put one more thing on him. But I realized that was pushing us apart from each other too. And so I think we realized through that just the importance of keeping those really short accounts with how I'm really doing. And he can't read my mind or my heart. I mean, yes, he may ask questions like, hey, are you okay? But I have to make a choice. Sometimes he'll notice, but maybe he's not asking it maybe as in-depth as I might need, but I've got to make that choice to say, hey, let me really invite you into how I'm really feeling. And I don't get to make, I mean, I can, but I shouldn't make the choice as to whether or not he has space to hold that. It's like, I'm actually not by me trying to choose for him that he had too much on his plate. It's like, it actually put a wedge between us and it robbed us of intimacy, emotional intimacy that we needed. And I, needed him to know. And, as we realized that, it was just like, yeah, it's always worth inviting each other in quickly, whether it's something that's like
it gets bigger the longer you hold it.
Yeah. Because sometimes it is maybe something that's happened between us, but sometimes it's just things that are going on in your own heart that he can't read my mind or know how I'm feeling. So I have to choose to let him see those things.
Right. I love you said that we can't read each other's minds. And for some reason, some people think we can, and we just can't, we have to tell them. And I love what you said about short accounts. I think that's so important because the more we let things rattle around our head, then he becomes more the enemy even, it's like, well, he doesn't care and to get it on the table and then they can say, well, yeah, I can do that. Or thanks for telling me, or how can I help you with that? Or he can say, I can do this. Can we do it this weekend? Because I do feel overwhelmed right now, but I'm so glad you told me. I mean, just get it out there. We can deal with it. It's so good. So good.
Yeah. And even there's the practical of the little, and then there's couples who are willing to name and take the risk to name, I am believing this about myself right now. And you're able to write it out in a journal so you can have the courage to say it to your spouse. For most people, even though it may feel, for some it may feel shameful, for some it's fear, for some there's guilt, for others there's unknown of how this person will receive. But when we're honest of like, I know I'm not moving towards you in the ways that I want to, but I want you to know, like, I am feeling this way about myself right now. Like, some people may end up taking that and taking advantage of it for a moment. Generally though, people, when you crack open to the vulnerability of what's going on in your heart and soul, your spouse moves towards you, not take advantage of it. Now, not everybody, and that's where you got to keep being honest and ask for help where you need it. But sometimes we hold on to that so much that we don't move toward that intimacy that's available inside of a marriage.
That's so good. I think, guys, we struggle with it a little bit more. I remember the first time I was really vulnerable with Nancy, and I think God just prompted me because this wasn't planned out or anything. And seeing her response of how the compassion I saw in her and the care, and it was like, okay, I can do this because, we're guys and we're supposed to be able to handle everything and all this kind of stuff. But God gave us our wives to walk through life with and our husbands to walk through life with. And each of us have abilities that the other doesn't have. And I think when you put those together, we've seen over and over and over how one of our strengths complements the other's weakness back and forth over and over and over. And there's just such a beauty in that of how God did that in this marriage that he gave us. And and I tell people all the time, your marriage, there'll never be another one like it in the world. Yours is unique. You're two unique people. And that's pretty cool too. It's not like God had this template that he just put us all in. No, each one is different and unique. And he's there for us no matter what we go through. I love that.
That's good.
That's really good.
So let's talk about must-have habits that result in a healthy marriage. What would you say some of those are?
Cool.
I think probably my favorite one, the best piece of advice we got before we got married, somebody said...
There was someone like strongly challenged us
Yes,
to this.
they said, look, whatever you do, make it a priority to pray together every day. And, I think in the beginning, I probably thought that would mean we would like get on our knees and journal a prayer together every day. And it doesn't look like that, but as you can imagine. But I think having this deep commitment that, okay, even if at the end of the day we're exhausted and it might be 2 sentences or, one of us may fall asleep fast and in the middle of the prayer, whatever it may
And
be.
I fall asleep in the arms of Jesus while praying.
That's
It's
true. You
good.
do that
Yeah.
a lot. It takes me a little longer to fall asleep, so I take those nights.
Yeah.
But I think just having that habit of let's seek the Lord together, even if it's brief, even if we're exhausted, it might be as quick as, Lord, you know what we need, and we need you. Let us sleep well tonight. And other nights it might be like we're really heavily burdened for one of our kids, and we're really seeking God together on that. But it's that,
Or some nights it's, Lord, you know, we're too tired to continue the conversation that is our conflict right now. Yet
yeah,
we're at a place that we need rest and we're going to pick it up tomorrow. Would you bring us clarity as we, and it's that simple. And it's,
yeah.
sometimes it's that.
I think that, but that, just, or if we're apart, just trying to, quick phone call, just, I mean, certainly we have missed nights. I mean, I don't want to give the impression never miss a night in all these years, but just that, that's our heart, that's our desire, that's a continual rhythm that we have. And I think there's certainly, it's been unifying for us. And there is something that just like keeps us connected to one another, connected to the Lord, and humble, remembering that, Lord, you are sovereign, you're in control of all these things, and but also there's something too about praying together that also when there are things between us that, if I think sometimes I'll like turn over the other way in the bed, and David's like, are you turning over because there's like something we need to talk about, or you're just really that tired? But prayer sometimes like makes me realize like, oh, there's like something between us that we need to talk a little more about. But
Yeah.
I think it's a Gallup stat. There's several out there, but I believe it's for couples who pray regularly together. And I think they define regularly as multiple times a week, but genuinely pray together. The divorce rate's like 1 in 1,182. There's a fact check that needs to happen there, but it's over 1,000. And it's just, it's the simplest one. Yet there's amazing how much resistance in our soul can not want us to do it. So another one would be, or were you going to say something on that, Dr.
Well,
Kim?
I just going to reiterate. I think that it's important. I just see that in counseling, if I can get a couple to begin praying together as we go through the process, it makes all the difference in the world. And then hopefully they keep it up. I think you give up God opportunities to show up. And I think he wants to show up in our marriages, and he just wants us to invite him in. And there's nights that we pray and we're tired, and it's not, I don't think ours are never like this homily or something, ours
Right.
are usually to the point, and
Yes.
we need you to help us. But there's something about that and coming together with him. And I just think God loves that. I think that's the picture of marriage, the three of us together going through our lives, and prayer connects us.
it invites God in to do something, because I think it's like we're inviting him to do something, and we also recognize it was him who did it.
Yeah.
I think sometimes things can happen and you kind of miss like, oh wait, this is like what we've been desiring. Well, when you're asking him to do it, you
Right.
recognize, okay, he is really at work, on our behalf where we can't be sometimes. So
Yeah.
And that's so encouraging when you see that happen.
right.
I think another habit that's so simple, and I know you encourage people to do this, is just calendar your companionship. There's just a reality without that intentionality of calendaring it as you want it to be spontaneous. You're like, the world will drift you apart and out of your rhythms if you don't set the rhythms. And, there's just the practice of the lattice work that you build your marriage on, in order to have rhythms to build on. And I would say this is the lowest bar I would go, but to at least have one time a week where you're able to sync up, looking each other in the eye, no media. You're just talking about what you're thinking through. That can be on your couch. That can be at your own table. You can go somewhere, take a walk. I mean, at the minimum, once a week. At the minimum, once a month, have a real date. Now, there's many people out there that would say once a week minimum, please. And that's the ultimate rhythm. It would be awesome. For couples that set that rhythm, man, it does bring a lot of health. There's just a lot of sync up that you keep doing, of having fun together and playfulness. Yet at the minimum, a month, one day a month, one night a month, if it's a night. And then one time a year, get away. And you could do a marriage event, a retreat of some sort. You could just get away, just the two of you, and be playful, be intentional about what you talk about. It's simple. And, that'd be probably the lowest bar, but those rhythms go, when you're not
Yeah.
being intentional there, you just end up not living them out. No matter how great your dating relationship was 10 years ago, you get into new rhythms and ruts, and
Absolutely.
it's simple. And yet without calendaring it, it doesn't happen. You don't default into those type of rhythms very often in life, because life is busy and hard.
No, and I think what we talked about earlier, Meg was talking about, the time, I guess, after y'all had moved and you were holding these things in, and you need those times to be able to talk about that. For us, we don't talk about something serious every evening when we sit down together, but we've got that habit, and it's there in place in that time that we do need to talk about something, or one of us has a burden to share. It's there. And that has been important to us. And we've certainly, there's times in your life you have to work on it. It's harder when kids are all around. It's harder when kids were younger. We used to think, well, after they go to bed, we get them in bed, we'll do it. And then we were both so tired. It was like,
Exhausted.
Yes,
oh,
we're not.
maybe tomorrow. Yeah. No, those are good. So how have you guys seen those change your marriage or be impactful in your marriage?
Like what Meg described on praying together, it's you kind of explain, just it draws you toward one another, even when you don't want to do it, even when, but you're like, okay. And sometimes there's seasons where you're like, we said the prayer, thanks Lord, amen, but
Yeah.
there's seasons where that rhythm ends up, the payoff gets immense when the challenges come in life. The calendaring your companionship, we were actually out of transition, threw us way out of our own rhythms. And we had gotten to a place where we had really good annual getaways. And we would I think we even made them 2 times a year, but we were just hanging on in the in-between. It felt like, life's just coming. And so we really did a reboot. Yeah. 18 months ago. What does it look like weekly? And for us, that ended up being, you know what, with all the kids' sports right now, that needs to be during the day. And so we've chunked and guarded with everything we can a part of the day. And I'm amazed of just how that simple discipline, companionship's the right word, because there's just a kindred companionship that
It's true.
develops, yes, you want all this romance. Ultimately, for romance to become something, it starts with great friendship and great companionship and being known. And gosh,
Yeah.
that rhythm has been a
It's
game
good.
changer. And we had to figure out in this season when would be realistic, because we kept putting it on the calendar and something would always trump it, because it usually revolved around something getting changed around the kids' schedule. And one other, I just think is worth mentioning. Were you about to say this one?
Phones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
This has been a big conversation for us.
Well, you were probably going to say about scripture before phone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Say that, because I have another thought about this,
Okay.
even between the two of us.
The habit of just in the morning, we all, whether it's the news, whether it's whether it's email or Instagram, we all kind of have the place we run to first on our phone, and getting the phone away from my bedside and going toward the Lord or in some form of meditation before my phone, and us doing that together when we're living that's our desire. You tripwire back into old habits really quickly when it comes to your phone, because it's wired, the algorithms are wired for it, and it's an easy place to go. But man, it's when it go back to the A and the M, it forces me to lean on Jesus, and bring that strength to our marriage, and my identity, having a lot of security when my morning's not tied up in my phone first. Like, man, that's a big deal. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, the other, I mean, certainly that one, just that we're seeking the Lord before just getting distracted. I mean, it could be like one text, and the next thing I know, I spent 30 minutes doing other things. One thing leads to another, a new notification pops up. But I think the other thing too
Yes.
is that one of our favorite Valentine cards that I gave David one year said, "There's no one I'd rather lay in my bed next to and look at our phones." And it was like hilarious, of course, but at the same time, quite convicting, that we were both just like, okay, let's whether it's, that companionship time, whether it's dates or weekends away or even at night, just like that you've been really good about plugging your phone in downstairs. I feel like I need to be a little more available if, my family needs me in the middle of the night or things like my
Yeah.
parents. But just, okay, put it on do not disturb with just certain people have access or whatever. And choosing to engage face to face and like having the discipline to put our phones away in the moments when it's hard to do it, but it's so worth it because you can, there's a new study. I don't know how new it is, but that you probably know the source of this, but that even just,
this is Sherry Turkle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Even just having your phone on the table in a conversation with someone like creates more emotional distance and distraction, just even if you're not using it, but just having it sit there,
Your brain will subconsciously keep the conversation on things you don't mind being interrupted about. And you're like, that makes so much sense. Yet the
So
now
much
data
sense.
behind it. Yeah.
I agree. We just did they can cut this out, but we just did a podcast this morning on technology and how it affects marriage. And we do that from time to time just because it's such a deal. But one of our, Christina Dodson, who's our COO at Awesome Marriage, they made a commitment, probably 3 years ago, to put their phones up for the 3 hours at night. When he gets home, it's dinner, it's kids, for 3 hours. And they didn't think they could do it. But he made it known to his staff and to other people that, this is our time together. And the benefit they've seen out of that's been great, been really good. I think we all have habits in our marriage. And I think we have to, and that doesn't mean, like we've talked in other things, that mean they're all bad. But I think, again, it's what habits would grow your marriage. What habits would long-term make a difference? I know prayer has made a huge difference in our marriage. There's no doubt that has made a huge difference. There's no doubt that setting aside time together has made the same things that you guys are saying. And so I think it's really just for couples to say, okay, what habits do we want in our marriage? And what ones long-term? And what do we want our kids to see? I think that's an important part of it too. Because if it's good for your kids to see, it's probably going to be good for your marriage too.
Yeah, that's so
that
good.
is so true.
And then I think people have I can remember with people years ago before the YouVersion, before all that kind of stuff, they'd say, well, yeah, we wanted the Bible, go, where would we start? And sometimes I'd say, well, just open it. Well, then I'd get somebody opened in Leviticus and they're killing cows or, something like that. And so they're going, no. So I learned to give a little more direction in that. But, now that we have, so many tools like YouVersion, other things that other places put out, it's so easy to read the Bible together and to find things that you both enjoy and to grow together in that. And sometimes, we read the Bible through every year, but we don't do it together, but we're reading the same thing every day. And so then we can talk about it or say, hey, what do you think about that? Or I didn't understand that, or, something like that. And it's just another way to connect. So I love all those things that you guys said. I would just reiterate what you're saying is they're so important and they do make a difference. For sure.
Right.
So, anything else that we haven't talked about that you would like to share or tell our listeners about?
Oh, it's been such a treat to be on with you, Dr. Kim. I'm so grateful for your faithfulness over years to serve marriages and the kindred spirit of that, and how you do that, and how you invite people into the practical and also the depth of their story. Super thankful for Awesome Marriage and what you've been doing and continue to do. And yeah,
Thank you.
One thing that's just big on our heart is that every marriage, especially the ordinary marriage, can do the extraordinary thing of having conversations about your marriage with other people. And so often we're fearful of that. We don't know how to do that. And, both Awesome Marriage, FamilyLife, there's other great resources. We create resources to make it easy to have life on life conversations. And, I mentioned FamilyLife's most recent one with the art of marriage. We just walked through it, and it just bumps and sets great conversation between people where you don't have to be an expert. And Dr. Kim, you do this all the time for people where you frame up things where people can take it and share it, and hey, let's just process this together. And I just we love
Absolutely.
encouraging people to do it in community. And yes, you and your marriage can gather some friends and have intentional conversation together. It's one of the biggest missing pieces. It's Jesus's way, life on life,
Yeah.
person to person.
Yeah.
Yeah, God's put you around the people he's put you around to be intentional together. And we would love to encourage you to do that.
Oh, that's so good. Final question. You kind of danced around a little bit. What are you loving about your marriage today? 1 going off to college, 3 still at home. What are you loving about your marriage?
I mean, you mentioned this earlier. I think probably my one thing I love the most is that we do have this rhythm of a day date pretty much every week. And it is, I mean, the other reality, besides the fact that it's consistent and we're not battling other things going on at night there are occasionally times where something from, work or ministry will come up that, takes the place of that, but we really try to guard it. But yeah, I think just that I'm also not like super tired because it's the end of the day. And I'm like, oh, I'm so tired, let's just stay here and not go out. But it's like, oh, it's middle of the day. I'm energized. So
Yeah,
that's a fun rhythm.
That's a good point too. Yeah, absolutely.
What would you say?
In this stage, that's for sure. I would say I've been grateful recently how there's been a fresh round of surrender and all right, what are the values for our next stage of life? How do we step intentionally into those and trusting God together into a next phase? You just go, that's also part of the get on the dry sand and draw toward one another. All right, we have one going off to college. We have this next season to live with these next 2 before they go off. There's things being drawn in our own lives of what things to step into that the Lord's asking to take steps of faith. I'm like, all right, no matter how life keeps going up, we want to be people that live according to the values that God puts on our hearts and on our family and step into those boldly. I'm grateful to get to do that with you, babes. Yeah.
Me too.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So if people want to learn more about you guys or family life, where's the best place to find you?
Yeah. So FamilyLife.com, you can check it out there, whether it's events and experiences like Weekend to Remember and the cruise that we have, resources like Family Life Today and other resources out there like Art of Marriage I've mentioned, or resources for you to come help other people in their journey in their own marriage and family, and God using you to pour into other people. Those are the 3 things that we love, pouring into people and that we're about. So FamilyLife.com, you can also search on all the channels. And yeah, grateful to be able to join you, Dr. Kim. Grateful for what you do.
Well, that's so great. And family life, just over the years, so many couples that have been impacted by it. I've encouraged people to check out the resources. Family Life has done so much for so many people for so many years. And now as you guys are leading it and have been for, I can't believe that's been 7 years you've been leading it.
I know, it's true.
Amazing. So thank you for what you do, Family Life does. Thanks for spending time today. This has just been so much fun to spend time with you guys.
Oh, it
Thank
has
you.
been for us too. Thank
Same to
you.
you.
Thanks. Bye.
Have a good one.
You too.